Hello and welcome everybody to this XTB live news. My name is Walid Koudmani, market analyst for XTB. And in this video, we're going to be talking about the main events happening in the markets this morning, what we can expect from the US session, what to keep an eye on from the economic calendar point of view going forward this week, and what we're going to take a look at the charts to see some major moves and some key levels, support and resistance to keep an eye on as well. Today is Monday, the 7th of June, 2021. We've had quite a slow start to a busy week on the economic and macro point of view. This weekend we had the G7, and it was a huge topic towards last week and towards this week. We have the G7's finance ministers committing to implementing a global minimum tax rate of 15%. So that was quite some news. We also saw US President Biden rejecting the Republican infrastructure bill proposal. So we are going to see some more negotiations on that. Could lead to some more delays, but could lead to a bigger infrastructure deal in the end on that. Putin also said that Russia will continue to deepen cooperation with China. So the Russian president says he expects trade between Russia and China to reach 200 billion by 2024, which is quite significant because that can be seen as the other block, let's say, of the global economy, with the Europeans or the Euro US market as one, and then the Russian-China market as another one, although the Chinese market is very, very influential on countries that are typically considered, let's say, aligned with the Euro bloc or the US, like Australia and New Zealand, but because of their proximity, they are quite linked. So any sort of news with Russia and China could then end up playing out even to larger scales, of course. Today, not much happening on the economic calendar point of view. We saw European markets slightly lower at the beginning and then recovering. So I'll show you that on the charts. We had German factory orders data for April was released and showed a 0.2% month-on-month drop against the expected 0.5% increase. So that was quite negative for the German. But other than that, we received the Euro area Centex index for June, and we are just awaiting some more macroeconomic news. Moving forward during the week, we actually have some very important macroeconomic events. So these are the ones that are worth keeping an eye on. In particular is the Bank of Canada rate decision on Wednesday at 3 p.m. Thursday, we have the 12:45 p.m. European Central Bank decision. So that can impact any sort of number of markets, including the euro, any sort of euro markets. And then Thursday, we have at 1:30 p.m. US CPI data for May. CPI data, which is inflation. And that's been very important lately because inflation has been a very important topic that has been kept an eye on, under monitoring from central banks, but also from normal investors. Because if a normal, let's say, the normal consumer feels like the inflation is rising or changing at an unstable pace, then central banks generally will feel the need also to implement some sort of policy or change policies, which, as we've seen in the past, can have significant impact on the markets. And so that's something to look forward to during the week and moving on to the later part of the week. But enough about that. Let's take a look at some charts, and let's start with the DAX as always. DAX, which again continues its move upwards, as you can see, with some pullbacks along the way. But overall, especially if we start from, let's say, the beginning of the year, we can see that it has been quite a direct move upwards, except for some ranging here through April and into May, but continuing the overall direction. If we want to put it on the daily chart, we can see that on the daily, excuse all the lines because it's broken down, but you can see that the trend is generally upwards. And in fact, even though the last few days we've had 4 closes, one after the other, with an up of 2%, reaching a high now of 15,730 points, around the new all-time high. So DAX continuing its all-time high, actually performing better than the US counterparts, as I'm going to show you in a second. So with the US counterparts, we have the Nasdaq, which is the US Tech Index, US 100 on the platform. You can see similar situation with the recovery on the hourly chart, but since the end of May, we've had this consolidation with a potential resistance area around right now where we're testing. So this is very interesting to see on the 13,758, 57. Acted as a resistance a couple of times in the past. In fact, even here, price reaction, support here. So important area around this area. Top limit of the short-term trading range, you can see. While the, let's say, lower limit, we can put around this area, 1361. And quite narrow range, but you can see that the index itself has been trading in this range for significant. Briefly breaking through it here, testing previous areas, and then pulling back into the range as we can see. Testing the upper limit, and now failing to break through it once again, currently testing the moving averages, the 8 and 21 SMA or EMA, sorry. US 500 is something interesting because I like to talk about this in the videos. We haven't had a video for about a week now, but I like to mention the fact that they have very similar moves, the Nasdaq and the S&P, but the Nasdaq or the S&P seems to be further ahead when it comes to its all-time high compared to the Nasdaq. The Nasdaq seems to lag behind. In the videos that I've done over the years at this point, we have noticed that whenever a recovery moves happen, sometimes the Nasdaq seems to lag behind. So we'll see that now the S&P is about 0.25% ish, so about 0.25% from its all-time high, trading around 4,230. While the Nasdaq is actually about 2% from its all-time high, especially if we draw it from here. Yeah, about 2.7% from its all-time high, despite a positive recovery move, as you can see, because we actually came back from a significant low. So from 12,900 points to 13,000, almost 800 points, and with the all-time high being just above 14,000 points. So quite interesting moves. RSI is around 53 on the Nasdaq, while we don't have that on. Let's put one on the S&P just to take a look at as well. And we can see it's around 64. So similar, but you can see that the S&P is actually quite close to its all-time high, and remains to be seen if it'll be able to break through it or even test it, or if it will just stay in this range that we've seen it in for several days now. When it comes to commodities, very interesting news lately. We missed gold last week through the videos on YouTube, but I'm back, and let's take a look at what happened. So we had this consolidation towards the end of May and testing of an upper limit. Let's say we had this upward trend line we drew last time, tested it and then pulled back, then ended up going to a new high, short-term high of around $1,916. So quite a significant move from where we started, if you recall, just a few months ago. And then after that, really, the price struggled to remain in that area and pulled back around this previous range of $1,900, so 1,900, testing the Ichimoku cloud, breaking below it. And then after it broke below it, really continued the move, almost 3%, dropping to a low of 1855, which sounds familiar to some of you. It is because it had been tested towards the end of May. And the third week of May. And we saw then the recovery upwards from that level, returning into this short-term range. You can see that the price has tried to return, which areas that acted as a support in the past tend to act as resistance sometimes. But the price managed to recover and is currently around 1888, so $1,888 for the price of gold. Interesting thing to note is on the Ichimoku cloud, you can see this area has been tested many times. This is hourly, so look how many tests there have been, and the Ichimoku cloud on the hourly chart has been able to hold off the drop quite significantly. And in fact, we may see it attempting to recover at this point with all these green candles. But again, stuck in a range that it's been in for quite some time. And it's going to be interesting to see, especially with the dollar weakening, as I'm going to show you in a minute. Dollar has suffered slightly, so we can see some upward moves on price of gold as well. Comes to oil, oil's different story. Oil with the continuing the upward move that we saw. So again, I didn't cover this last week, but you can see that the upward move really did continue quite linearly. So if we draw a trend line, let's see from this, let's put it here. Let's draw it from here to here. You can see that remaining above it quite the whole time. Even so, obviously I'm testing it all through these levels, and it managed to remain right above this upward trend line. If we want to draw a parallel to it, perhaps this way would be a way to do it. And you can see that really the direction is upward. We have had, like gold, upward moves with pullbacks, but obviously gold had the bigger drop. And oil currently trading, Brent currently trading around 71.58, which is interesting because there have been a lot of factors that played into the price of oil. So we've had the macroeconomic issues, we've had the lockdowns, we've had the prospects of demand recovery. So that's playing a big part. But as I mentioned in the past, there are some things that potentially could add some pressure to the prices of oil, including, and not really something that's very far in the future, because it's been a topic of under focus lately, is the Iran deal between the US and Iran. So the Iran deal, for those of you who do not know, is a deal that Obama made with the Iranian government for nuclear. Basically, they had the right to go in and check their nuclear sites and make sure that they weren't making any sort of weapons. And in exchange for that, they were able to export their oil competitively, Trump pulled out of that deal in adding sanctions to Iran, so it made their oil unexportable in a sense because it was too expensive. But Biden, even from the elections, we've talked about this. One of his things was, or one of his policy issues could have been, or seemed to be, the reinstating of the Iran deal, which down the line could bring back around 2 million barrels per day into the oil market. Major issue for the oil market because demand and supply are really tightly balanced at the moment already with all the lockdowns and all the things that can impact. So any sort of extra input from another country could be really interesting to see how the OPEC, for example, or other producers really adjust to that. But for the moment being, oil prices continuing the upward move. You can see, let's take it from the end of May, up almost 5%. Actually, in fact, over 5%. We're going to take it off the high, 72.20, and then pull back. Similar situation to gold, testing the upper limit of the Ichimoku cloud on the H1, $71 at the moment, and remaining above all these ranges that we've seen in the past. WTI, similar situation again, upward move, upward trend, and reaching actually a high of $70, which we haven't seen in quite some time. If we want to take a look at the daily, in fact, let's take a look at the weekly and see how long it's been. So highest level since 2018 on oil reached at, and you can see these weeks of positive performance for oil, particularly WTI. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks out of the last 8 have been positive for the price of oil, and we can see this upward move really continuing since the end of 2020 and moving even further back. But if we want to take a look at some currencies quickly, let's take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin, volatile weekend for cryptos and Bitcoin in particular, which it might not look that way on the chart at the moment, but you can see that actually the ranges are, thousands of dollars here. So it may look like it's not that much, but in fact it is, maybe $1,000 up and down. So compared to Bitcoin, the volatility that we've seen in the past, it's not the biggest volatility we've seen, but really the crypto market really on the whole has been quite volatile and quite uncertain lately. But when it comes to fiat currencies, let's take a look at the chart on the market analysis section of the platform. We can see USD, Euro, and quite mixed performance, slightly negative. You can see all these currencies are trading higher against these. Pound is more positive, and in fact, New Zealand dollar, Australian dollar, and yen are really, really positive today, trading higher against other currencies. And while the Canadian dollar is actually trading lower, which is interesting considering the rise in the prices of oil. In fact, but we have seen some pullbacks, so that might also make sense. If we take a look at the pairs, Pound USD, managing to get back over 141.5, 141.7 at the moment. Again, Ichimoku cloud holding after it broke through it. And approaching the top of the range around 141.9, and then the recent highs around 142 and 142.5. So you can see the charts are quite similar through assets and through instruments. So you can see, but it's quite interesting to see where they're at in their pushes and their moves. So we've seen some pullbacks, we've seen some upward moves, and really the weakness of the dollar is helping as well the pound, who is gaining strength. This is a euro dollar chart, so the euro dollar pair with the overlaid USD index chart, which is these blue candles. You can see the dollar index performance of the dollar against a basket of currencies versus Euro USD. And I like to show these charts together because they look quite symmetrical and they help give me an idea of if the move is motivated from the dollar or from the other currencies. In this case, we have seen that it's a bit of both, with euro dollar pushing upwards as we saw the downward move of the dollar. So this is about a 0.5% move on the euro dollar, and then consolidation in this range. But we've seen this in the past where we have these big moves, although this was one candle, so it's quite it's a little bit more interesting than the other ones. But we've seen these big moves and then some consolidation, some big moves and some consolidation. At the moment, still remaining around 121.7. So that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching. Good luck with your trading throughout the week. I'll see you on Friday. And if you're not in the WhatsApp group for the alerts, feel free to message an account manager to be added to the group. And other than that, feel free to like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. Good luck with your trading. My name is Walid Koudmani.